Great to have you on a very important day to speak with you. What do you make of this story? What is the worst drop for Nvidia, at least in years?
Yeah, you bet. So I spent a lot of time this weekend, most of my weekend looking at this. We knew it was going to be a circus today. That was pretty clear, just given everything, all the takes that were there in the Twitterverse. I had sort of three conclusions. It's my own conclusions from this as I'll call it like a semi-informed layperson around this. But number one, I think the big issue was that the headline, the initial takes that came on this was, oh my God, China's duplicated OpenAI for $5 million, which is categorically not true. We can talk about what they did, but they did not train this reasoning model for $5 million. That did not happen. We can talk about why. But number two, how did they get the efficiencies that they did? These are very, very good models. Like, I don't want to discount that. But the types of things that they did, they're not miracles. They're a mixture of experts, and they did some very interesting with something called multi-headed attention, and they use lower precision calculation. These are all things that are known, and all of the labs are all working on, if not deploying already. So there was nothing here that was like unknown to anybody else, like in the AI industry. Like, these are not miracles. Finally, like number three, I personally think, we'll talk about this, I think that this is clearly a panic today. I think it's overblown. The school of thought here is that, like, oh my God, these are so much more efficient. Like, we don't need as much investment. So number one, we actually don't know what they're spending to train the reasoning model that's causing the angst. My suspicion is quite a bit more than what they did to train the base model. And number two, you got to remember, like, I'm a semi guy. Like, I actually view cost reduction as a good thing. We want adoption. Like, in semiconductors, again, I'm probably biased, but like, cost fell by a factor of 2 every 2 years for 50 years. It was not a bad thing for semiconductor. It was a fantastic thing for semiconductor, man. Unless you think that we were already close to saturation in terms of the amount of compute that was going to be required for AI, we need these kinds of innovations and efficiencies, because otherwise, like, you're not going to be able to get to where they're going anyways. And so I think this was already happening. I think it needed to happen. And I can make, I think, a very clear argument that the more efficient things get, the more demand we will have, not less. So I actually think over the long term, this is a good thing, not a bad thing. But clearly the market disagrees today. So that is what it is.
I mean, Nvidia hasn't been afforded the multiple it has, nor the stock price, for that matter, on the idea of a commodity. Has it? Hasn't it been rewarded the way it has on the idea of the best, of a moat, on some level of exclusivity, at least now? Well,
the issue here is not that. Where is the commoditization and it's not the chips, it's the models, right? So again, if your business model going forward is we're developing AI models that we're going to sell to the general public, maybe you worry. Like, I don't know. It doesn't mean that, like, that the folks that are doing this still don't need to buy a lot of chips. I think they're going to still go to buy a lot of chips. And by the way, what did we see last week as all this was happening? We saw Facebook, or Meta, I guess, massively take up their CapEx guide. We saw all the Stargate stuff. We even had China actually announced a 1 trillion RMB, so like roughly 140 billion US, a program for AI investment in China. This was all last week, right as all the DeepSeek stuff was happening. DeepSeek's not new either, by the way. The V3 model, the base model, was actually released on December 26th. Like, none of this is new. None of this is surprising to any of the large US guys that are spending all this money. They're spending it anyways.
Nvidia finally responds to China rattling the tech market stocks and the AI sphere with its new DeepSeek AI model. Everyone was waiting for the anticipated response after Nvidia's stock tanked, alongside most tech stocks. But what exactly happened? Why did Nvidia's shares take such a steep dive after the outlook was nothing but optimistic? And what could Nvidia or Jensen possibly say to remedy any of that loss and bring back hope for the stock? There is only one way to find out. Let us take a deep dive into Nvidia's response and the implications of it. Welcome back to Investocracy.
Nvidia's future, in some respect, is leveraged to the development, the production, and the success of Blackwell. If the company is telling you I'm going to read a comment from a spokesperson at Nvidia, which I think speaks to this, and we can discuss on the other side, where they say DeepSeek's work shows how new models can be created, leveraging widely available models and compute that is fully export control compliant. Now, you could read that and say, well, is the company admitting that you don't need the latest, greatest, most expensive chip to do what DeepSeek appears to have done?
No, I don't think that's what they're. So they're making a statement on China here because that came out of China. But look, you're going to have like if you're getting a massive proliferation of models of frankly of all shapes and colors and sizes, you're getting adoption. This is over time what we want. Right. This is not a bad thing. You're going to hear this a lot today, probably already, but there's a concept known as Jervin's paradox. The idea is as efficiencies and costs come down, like demand more than offsets. I keep going back. I went to the Hot Chips conference a couple years ago and Bill Daly, who's NVIDIA's chief scientist, was giving the keynote. And he was actually talking about performance improvements in GPUs. And he talked about like over the prior 10 years, NVIDIA had improved GPU performance by like 1,000x. And it was a bunch of things, process tech and architectures and sparsity and lower numerical precision, all kinds of things. But what he said in that keynote was like, over the next 10 years, we want to improve the GPU performance by another million-x. Like, again, unless you think that we are at the limit of what the compute that we need, I think this is a good thing. And if you look historically, we've never, ever had enough compute. Like, I've got the data going back even before AI was like taking off, just looking at like sort of installed compute in the data centers, like in MIPS and millions of instructions per second. I have this data going back like 30 years. It was growing at 50% a year forever. It never stops. So I'm personally not of the belief that you can have enough compute. I think if we're getting efficiency gains, which I think we need if we're going to meet the compute demands that AI and accelerated compute are placing on us, I think that we're going to get absorbed. I think we need this.
But you don't
think that there's a limit on compute needs.
The financial community was abuzz with discussions on how DeepSeek, surprisingly manufactured with a modest budget of under $6 million, managed to surpass renowned U.S. models, including those from OpenAI. This trifling sum seemed almost like a minor footnote against the backdrop of the billions being poured into AI development by tech behemoths in the U.S. Nvidia, attempting to appease rising skepticism, publicly acknowledged DeepSeek's efforts while reiterating that this model necessitates approved GPU versions, specifically crafted for the Chinese market. Reuters added that this strategic move seemed an attempt to counter the lingering plague of potential export violations concerns. But before going on with the video, are you into cryptocurrency? If so, check out our second channel, Investocracy Crypto. We bring you breaking news, expert analysis, and the latest trends in the fast-moving world of digital assets. Whether you're a seasoned crypto investor or just curious about the future of finance, we've got something for you. Click the link in the description to subscribe to Investocracy Crypto now. Don't miss out and stay ahead of the game. Now, let's get back to the video.
But there might be a limit to which some are now willing to pay for these chips, which are very expensive. So is there a price issue potentially to think about? And then the obvious margin issue. I mean, the reason they're making money hand over fist is because these chips are expensive, and everybody thought they needed as many of them as they could get their hands on.
I still think they're going to need lots of chips. And in terms of like their ability to price, it comes back to exactly that same point. How much can they improve performance? So if I'm going to make up the numbers, but you kind of get it. You look as NVIDIA went from, say, Ampere to Hopper. And the price, I don't know, kind of doubled, like whatever it was. But the performance improvement was something like 10x. So that was a massive, like NPV positive investment for their company, for their customers. And they sold them hand over fist. And if you look at Blackwell, and again, they don't really sell GPUs, they sell servers. But if you wanted to sort of suggest the GPU price is going up, 50% or whatever it is, if you look at the performance metrics for Blackwell versus Hopper, they're going up anywhere from 3 to 30x, depending on what you're doing. So the same thing, a massive improvement. And these are efficiency gains, too, that like nobody seems to be complaining about. My own belief for NVIDIA pricing and margins is as long as they can continue to improve the performance, that is sort of the cap on what they can raise pricing on. So as long as they can keep performance going up at a good clip, they can keep pricing going up and they can keep margins. I worry about, this is why I don't really worry about competition and everything in terms of driving margins down. If we're ever reaching a point where they can no longer improve performance, then I really start to worry about their ability to price and their ability to drive margins. But it comes down to the same kind of trend. I think we need compute. I don't think we can have it. I don't think we can have enough compute. And again, in that context, I think the sell-off today, given these kinds of dynamics, this idea that this is just over efficiency is going to completely swamp the need for the. I don't think that's true. I don't think it's ever been true.
Following DeepSeek's revelation, companies like Vertiv Holdings and Vistra Corp did not escape unscathed. Both experienced a striking 30% plummet in share value. Amid these market tremors, Dan Ives of Wedbush, emerged with a sentiment poised to calm anxious investors, labeling the stock dip as a golden buying opportunity. A key player in this unfolding narrative is the practice of test time scaling, a concept receiving widespread attention after Nvidia CEO Jensen and OpenAI's Sam Altman extolled its virtues. But before going any further, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. These videos take a lot of effort and time to make, so if you enjoyed them, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This goes a long way in helping us grow. That said, back to the video.
Now, that said, when it comes to DeepSeek, listen, it was December 30th when we first heard about the performance of this Chinese AI model. Deirdre Bose has done great reporting on it since then as well. It was the 20th.
Fabulous work.
It was the inauguration day when we got these latest numbers. So even though we heard this was on the 20th and sort of built as that last week went along, you had the Stargate announcement of 100 billion, maybe as much as 500 billion. You had Zuckerberg on Friday say 60 to 65 billion in capex. You had Nadella reiterate 80 billion for Azure. So the numbers, to the extent that these leaders in technology were at least somewhat aware of this, did not get impacted. And you've got a lot of panic this morning and over last night. First I heard about Jevons paradox was last night, I have to say. And now,
good luck escaping it today.
In the 12 hours since then, I've heard about it 17 times. I was like, who? Last night, I'm like, who's Jevon? Come on, man. And it's like, well, it's this economist back in 1865 in Great Britain talked about the coal industry and said, hey, listen, if you haven't improved the efficiency with a natural resource,
it's Occam's razor.
You actually get a lot more usage. That is being used by the bulls this morning as a reason why nothing will really change. Yes,
I know. Isn't it funny?
The performance of DeepSeek is real. The efficiency is real. How they got there, less clear.
But we don't know how many chips they really use.
We don't.
But they're not exactly.
When Andrew had on the guy from Scale of AI.
Anthropic?
No, on Friday. Scale AI, he said 50,000 GPUs from Nvidia, H100s. We don't know.
And not the powerful ones.
Thank you, Alexander Wang. But we do know that their model training involves reinforcement learning, lighter weight techniques called group level policy optimization versus proximal policy optimization. They skip supervised fine tuning. They use other techniques such as multi-head latent attention, mixture of experts enhancements, and multi-token prediction. And by the way, they also distilled down from using OpenAI because a lot of people have done searches where it thinks it's ChatGPT.
Though Nvidia faced a momentous slide, the overarching narrative paints this as a transient storm, perhaps priming the stage for an exhilarating rebound. Professionals like Dan Ives are already doubling down with optimistic forecasts, envisioning a promising future for Nvidia as global AI investments burgeon. And Nvidia's response, as inconsequential as it has been, has also supported this narrative. One question remains, however. Is the current downturn a springboard for future gains, or does it signal more profound market shifts? Share your thoughts. Finally, if you would like to know what companies like Nvidia have been up to these past few days, go ahead and click on the next video on your screen. See you there.